Well, if the true financial impact of COVID hits in August and September, as is predicted, it's likely that donor retention numbers could drop, fundraising response could decline, and gift sizes could fall too. But on the other hand, as we've seen over the past few months, while some donors have stopped giving, others have actually stepped up their giving as they're presented with real needs that they could help. And here's something else I've been thinking about. Perhaps we might see a rise in volunteerism as those who cannot financially give but who are truly committed to your cause offer up their time.
So what I'm seeing is a bit of a trend here, that people have been in a reactive mode. And that's natural. I mean, hindsight now is 2020. We didn't have a lot of plans in place for this kind of event. So it's created a bit of an inertia. Along with that kind of inertia has also been worry with many organizations, and they've really reduced their staff in many cases, or they've certainly reduced their activities. Their events are canceled. So now I think, in this fall, we need to move out of that reactive mode and get into the proactive mode. And that's where, really having a close look at the fund development plan, looking for those alternate sources of revenue as well are going to be really, really important.
This recent time with COVID has forced all people in the industry to think really differently. Probably one of the biggest changes that's ever happened in fundraising has happened in the last 3 months, because we cannot rely on the staple of sitting down with our clients or with our potential donors. Just in time, Zoom became available to all of us, and other products as well, that enabled us to be right in the action with the donor. And I began to highlight the fact that I would be calling them. I would be calling them to discuss the fundraising that I was going to discuss with them, and the vision, the bold vision for the future of the organization. What occurred was my first attempt, slightly too formal, and the donor said to me, "Just relax, John. Ask me the question. What is it that you want?" "Well, I'd like to talk to you about a gift." And of course, he was ready. He's a man who's moved ahead, realizing that technology had to play a larger role in our industry. And bingo, he agreed almost immediately to the gift I was seeking. That caused me to really think about the future of fundraising and realize that this is a next step in fundraising that could lead to, in fact, greater gifts, because it's easier now to meet with our donors. I can actually have a conversation with them. So I think COVID, whilst being a very negative thing, there have also been positive aspects to it. And I believe this will bode well for fundraising in the future.
Know your donor base numbers. What does your recency frequency monetary chart look like? Who and where are your most committed donors, your most valuable? What channels and segments are performing the best? Perhaps data-driven targeting decisions might increase your net revenue. And what's your donor retention look like for new donors? For multi-donors, establish some benchmarks so you can track fall's numbers against those. Number 2, lean into your loyal donors with lots of attention. Thank them, share impacts with them, personalize your appeals to them, engage them with a survey perhaps, phone them, give them something of value, show them you care. Number 3, work on converting single gift donors to monthly giving, even if at a low amount. This will keep their connection to you rather than end their giving, which may never resume. And finally, number 4, consider a peer-to-peer fundraising program that motivates and equips your loyal donors to fundraise for you, to their family and friends.
This is a really good time over the summer to revisit the database. So many organizations really don't get the time to do that, to really see what they have. They've got gold in that database, and to look for patterns. Look for the opportunities for those donors who who maybe have given 10 or 12 years at an annual in an annual giving program, and now they may be an opportunity for you to reach out and look at a middle or even a major gift opportunity. So the next thing I would do too is conduct a risk assessment. This COVID event really caught many of us off guard. I don't imagine there's mitigating strategies for this, but there's potential, for this to rebound. And then the third thing really is to ensure that there is cultivation and solicitation activity. The research in the last couple of months has shown that those organizations that have been in personal connection with their donors, have reached out in multiple channels, are actually showing increases in their revenue. It's really false to assume our donors don't want to talk to us right now. They still care about us. They still care about our missions, and it's really important to actually increase the communication.
Because we were doing online polling whilst the podcast was going on, I was surprised at how many people responded to the question of what are you doing? And the answer was, we haven't created a plan yet. And so I think this summer would be the perfect time to lay out the plan that everybody in your organization understands and can get to grips with. Clearly planned out to execute in the fall. Obviously, along with planning goes the database work that is so critical to our industry. I believe that every database, if it's been well populated, is the key to our future. And so thinking about how good my database is, doing my research to get all my ducks in a row so that when the season does begin, I can then work through my list and know, and will give me also a different view, maybe that I'd forgotten about. They're the details right in front of me. They're the facts. They're the gifts. Here are the increasing gifts. Here are the people that have dropped off. Always ensuring to reconnect with lapsed donors, of course. But the plan, creating the plan about how you're going to execute, getting your team on side, and then allowing them the opportunity to go and engage donors.
Wow, perform that donor base and response audit I mentioned a moment ago. If you need help, let me know. We have an inexpensive service that can help with it. Make plans to utilize fundraising channels you may not have used before. Develop an integration strategy that leverages them to optimal response. Remember, research proves that donors who respond to multiple channels are more valuable donors. And if your current annual program is light on appeal frequency, consider stepping things up a bit. You may well be able to ask more, and if you do, you'll get more. But be strategic in how you do it. Segment, personalize, use compelling copy and images, and optimize your web donation page.
I'm an optimist and a realist, and many organizations are really doing extraordinary things, and we just need to talk about that. So it's, again, upping the communications, talking about the impact that the organization is having on the community, how it's providing services, the impact of good news story. And donors are looking for that good news story. I mean, these are kind of dark times. So if we can give a sense of empowerment to our donors through what we are doing, I think it's really important. So up the communications, make sure that we're telling the impact of what we are doing.
My answer never changes. Ask more people. Be knowledgeable about your goal, your vision for your organization, and don't be afraid to ask. A day without asking for a gift is a day wasted. And I think that everybody in the industry, when appropriate, should be asking more. And I like to also think about asking for a gift prior to 11 o'clock every day to get it out of the way. And then with that success, I'm able then, of course, to build on it for the rest of the day. The most effective fundraising tool is between individuals where one asks the other to fund the bold vision that the organization has created. And too often I work with organizations where simply not enough asking is done. Yes, you might be turned down, or as I like to think of it, it is in fact no today, but let's move to a yes in future. And so that is the advice that I would give almost any organization. Ask more. Create the knowledge of your donor, understand what motivates him, review his records of giving, and then, or she, of course, and don't be afraid. Ask, ask, ask.
My hope is based on history, because the world, has suffered many horrible times through the ages, and yet the God-given human spirit of perseverance, compassion, and creativity to solve problems has always ultimately triumphed. It's not easy, but we don't grow in easy times. We grow and become better in hard times if we look for the lessons to learn and act on them.
The world has not ended. And I think that's a really important thing in so many ways. We've seen how it just continues, even just in nature. The birds still sing, and the flowers still grow. And I think of it that way. I truly am an optimist that this is a bump, and it's a bit of a wake-up call for us. And it's telling us that we do need to do things a little differently. Going back to, the way things are, I mean, we are living in a new normal. And so we need to up our ability to be flexible and adaptable and creative and curious. So to be positive.
What has really heartened me, I have seen an upsurge in honest, committed giving to help organizations be successful despite the difficulty. And if one studied across the industry, you would find that virtually everybody who's focused, organized, and planning will have an upsurge in their giving. The upsurge in giving has been extremely positive, and I think that once again organizations need to be bolder and get out there. But the advent of technology, the increase in giving, the golden era of planned giving that has been heralded by the Chronicle, are wonderful, wonderful things to think about in the future. And so in the first few weeks of COVID, it looked as if we might be entering to an empty canyon without support. However, what has convinced me is my research and my actual success with donors. Of course I'm going to give, John. We all must stick together in difficult times like this. So I'm remarkably optimistic about the future for all fundraisers. I would just finish off by saying a few comments. Ask more, plan more, and be bolder.